It's the Aligned Singer, and we get to spend some time together again. On this edition of the Aligned Singer, I'm smiling ear to ear because I am giving you my personal play by play of how to start your professional career and break through as a pro performing artist. And to be honest, this is the Aligned Singer, so I'm always thinking about performing artists as far as singers, but this episode is for you if you're in film and TV, if you're any kind of performer or artist, really, and you want to pursue your career professionally. Before we dive in deep, with some stories and some very practical tips and pieces of advice that I wish I had known when I was starting out in New York City at 22 years old, I want to introduce myself. My name is Sarah Hockey. I'm a professional classical soprano, emphasis on professional. I get paid money, a lot of money, to sing and have for many years. That was my dream. My dream has come true. There's other episodes on how that happened. We'll do a little bit of that today, but I want to make sure you realize that I'm not just a voice teacher. I'm a professional singer. I'm also a voice teacher. My expertise is in building your vocal technique, and I am extraordinarily passionate about that because when I first moved to New York City at 22, my technique was shot, my voice was shot. I'm so pumped to dive into it. It was painful, but I'm pumped now because I sing great now. Why? Technique. That's the answer. But voice teaching, though that is the majority of the content that I put forth, is not the only thing I do. I'm also a professional singer and sing at a very high level with very successful colleagues, and it's to be honest with you, this episode came about because I started to connect the dots with some of my actual IRL students who are young. They're in undergrad, they're in grad school, and they don't even know what they don't know. They don't know that they don't know really anything about how to start a professional career. They don't even know the questions to ask me. And this started to come up enough times in my voice studio in lessons with students that I wanted to make an entire edition of The Aligned Singer saying all the stuff that I wish I would have known when I graduated from undergrad, and the stuff that I want people who are working with me on technique to know. To tell you the truth, we don't have time. In a lesson, when I'm building your instrument step by step, I don't have time to talk to you about this unless you want to take your entire lesson and talk about it. So we're talking about it here so that you have a resource and a go-to and a compassionate, loving, supportive person in your corner. That's me, your bel canto bestie, cheering you on. So where to start? Right now, while I'm recording this episode, a few things are happening. I'm getting some help out in my garden. I'm a passionate gardener. You might hear a little bit of noise here and there. He's gonna wait to start the really loud noises until I'm done. Bless his heart. He's amazing. And I'm also waiting for my mom to arrive in New York City. I'm going to go pick her up from the airport today. This is the last thing I'm doing in my home office before I go. And the first time I hit record and the guy helping me with my garden arrived, I was like, ooh, interrupted and started over like I told you. But it just reminds me, it makes me emotional again, and I was emotional before. Having my mom arrive today from Missouri, where I grew up, she still lives in the same house that I grew up in as a kid, makes me want to open up deeper to you than I ever have before and make sure that you know if you, like me, come from nothing, you can build a successful career as a performer. I feel like I'm going to cry right now. I need to slow my roll and calm down. So I have students that aren't like this, but if you find me and you find my work and you come from a household with very little support for your career, maybe your family and you're young, your family doesn't even know how serious you are about this. Maybe you come from a household like I did with very little emotional support around your artistic endeavors. That was certainly the case with me. Every single thing that I did as a teenager was because of me. My parents they just did not have the bandwidth to be supportive. And I had a very, very, very rough and very tough childhood, really rough. And part of that roughness, actually, the least rough part of the roughness was just that my family, my parents were very self-involved and not able to support me and in my career ambitions, which by the time I was about 15 years old, I knew, maybe even 14 and 13, I knew without a shadow of a doubt, the only thing I wanted to do with my life was be a classical singer. I'm like choking up because it makes me nervous to tell you this, but I'm going to keep going. I'm not even going to edit this because I think it's really important for you to hear. If you're the person listening somewhere in the US or overseas that does not have that level of support, I'm so emotional. I need you to know that even if you're starting from absolutely nothing, you could be successful. And it's hard for me to say that because this is something that I've kept secret and been really ashamed about for a long time because it's not normal in the world of highly successful classical musicians like me to actually truly come from nothing. A lot of people will have emotional support from their community and family and friends. I definitely had it from my friends, but not come from any money. But I had the double whammy where I was really set back because my family, I grew up in poverty and very, very, very poor, like literally on food stamps when food stamps were a stamp, where they were paper in the 80s when I was growing up. And that's where I started from. And I know that that's not what I sound like. And I know that's not what I look like. And I want to also head this episode up by saying that I feel like I'm going to cry again. I'm breathing. Breathe with me. Usually I'm breathing with you. I need you to breathe with me right now. So the other thing I want to say is I'm highly aware that I actually have privilege, even though I grew up in poverty and with a single parent when single parents weren't a thing, single mom, when single moms were not a thing, and had very little emotional support around my singing pursuits. I do want to tell you that I have grown up able-bodied. I'm a very healthy person, very strong physically. I grew up with nothing that held me back in school. So school was a place where I excelled. So I didn't have any cognitive issues or disabilities in that way. And I'm able-bodied, and I was naturally a very, very smart kid and was able to figure out how to code switch. If you don't know what that is, it just means in certain scenarios you talk in a certain way. I learned how to code switch really early on, especially when I got into classical music, and sort of turn off that crazy life at home and flip on the switch of what I'm passionate about, which is classical music. So as a teenager, I would put myself purposefully in scenarios where I'd be exposed to more and more classical music. And I didn't honestly know I was doing it at the time. I just was like, I love being here. If I was in a lesson with classical music or something like that, my friends and I in high school, our parents really trusted us and we were trustworthy kids. We were. So we'd go to the symphony and stuff. I was just telling my students in my studio this week, especially my younger ones that are in college and in grad school, that's how it was for me. And it's not like that for everybody. So I did have privilege in those aspects of my health, my mind, my level of intelligence, the way I look, because you wouldn't know looking at me or hearing me speak that that's where I came from. And you especially wouldn't know if you look at my resume and my accolades now. But that is where I came from. And this is not a pity party. I do not need you to feel bad for me. Those issues are healed because of the inner work that I've done and my family members have done. So my relationship with my parents is extremely supportive now, but when I really needed it, it wasn't. And I wanted to tell you that to make sure, I want to make sure to turn the lens on you. If you are in that scenario, it is not something that can stop you from your success as a performer. It cannot stop you. It might mean that the mountain that you need to climb or the journey you need to go on, that you didn't get to start at everybody else's starting line, but you will still be successful. And if you need an example of a regular person, I'm not famous, I'm not Jay-Z, I'm not these other people, somebody that grew up in Compline, I think is what it's called. I'm probably saying it wrong. Anyways, I didn't grow up in that way exactly, and I'm not super famous, so I'm not an exception. I'm not an exception to the rule. I'm just a regular professional performing artist that has been able to support myself for a very long time now, doing what I wanted to do. So that's covered. Now I want to move on to some more practical steps. So I want to be honest with you. If you didn't learn this anywhere, that's okay. These resources are not available, and I find as I'm out in the world that they're usually behind a guardrail. Maybe that's that you have to pay somebody to learn this. Maybe that's that you need to figure it out some other way. Well, it's definitely not covered in Conservatory. I literally had a meeting with one of the leadership at my old conservatory who had no idea of my level of success in my performing career. And we just met 2 weeks ago so I could fill them in on the last 20 years of my life. And even she said that these things are not covered. So this resource is for you if you aspire to be a professional and you are not yet. It doesn't matter how old you are, but I'm noticing these conversations come up in my life with people who are especially like from 20 years old to 35 years old. This is gold. And I wanted to make this absolutely free so that anybody can find this resource. So the first thing I want to dive into is all the stuff I wish that somebody would have told me in undergrad. I was in conservatory for voice, and I was very honest. I was not shy about wanting to be a professional. I had known that for years by that time, but no one ever at all ever talked about what you actually needed to do practically to start your career, to start pursuing a professional career. All we talked about were things that, yes, are relevant, like music history, like music theory, like vocal training, like singing in other languages, which is something that I had to learn how to do since I was studying opera at the time, etc. We did tons of musical training, but we did not do the practical how-to. And I grew up in Missouri and went to conservatory in Missouri. And frankly, I don't think my professors had any idea. What were they doing? Living in Missouri, working in Missouri. They were not pursuing a professional career. So of course they didn't know what to tell me, but they should have had somebody like me in to say so. So let's dive in. I moved to New York City when I was 22 years old. I had no money. In fact, I had negative money because I do not recommend you do this. We're going to talk about what to do, but I'm going to tell you what not to do first. I had taken out an extra student loan of $10,000 because one of my best friends, who's one of my best friends still to this day, Cindy, told me that she did that in order to afford her apartment. She was living in an apartment by herself off campus, and she did it through student loans. And I was like, wait, what? And I decided to take out a student loan of 10 grand, and that was the money that I used, a debt, to move to New York. That's what not to do. I recommend, step one, I recommend that immediately, no matter how old you are, immediately, you start saving money for your move. And do the research on what it costs now, but 10 grand is the minimum. the minimum that I recommend. By the way, I should backtrack this and say this is if you didn't grow up in a major area where you need to move to audition. For example, I'll use examples since I grew up here in the US, LA or New York. If you didn't, or maybe Boston, I don't know, Chicago, but LA and New York in my world of professionals are the two big hubs for pro careers. So if you aspire to leave wherever you are and live in a metropolitan area after graduation, or you've just been living in this area for a long time and you want to relocate, I recommend that you start saving literally today. I don't care how much money it is, but start saving. I do not recommend that you do it through debt because it saddles you later and puts a lot of pressure on you to pay that off and can kind of start a nasty negative cycle in your finances. It did for me. That's why I'm not recommending it. You do you, but for me, I want to be honest with you. I wanted to live on a shoestring budget when I first got hired to sing professionally because I wasn't making a lot of money. That's why I was like, I didn't earlier in this episode, why I wanted you to know that I'm a normal person. I don't make tons and tons of money from singing. I make a modest, it's not a nothing income. It's not a fantabulous income, especially for where I live, which is a hop, skip, and a jump right outside of New York City, which is people make a lot of money in this area. So I actually make a very modest income and had to learn to live within my means with the lifestyle that I wanted on that modest income. So when it came to racking up a bunch of credit card and student loan debt to help me fund my move, it was just not the right choice. And I don't recommend that you do it. That is step one. I have a sticky note here where I jotted down a bunch of things because I was afraid I was going to forget. Number one, save. 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 If you want me to cover that more on the Aligned Singer, I will, because I'm very passionate about that, because it actually plays into your artistry more than you realize. Number two, this is a conversation that I just had with the alumni coordinator at my undergraduate program, who had no idea the level of success I've had in my professional career. But now she does, which is so cool. And I can't wait to help those undergrad students who went where I went in Missouri. So we were talking about the importance of networking. You may not even know what that word means, or you may have a negative association with that word. But as I think back on especially the last 10 to 15 years of my career, I was networking without realizing it. Again, I grew up Midwestern. I'm not a savvy New Yorker. I'm not a savvy city girl. I do not know how to play relationships in some certain way. It's just not how I am. And I've accepted that that's a little bit perhaps of a limitation that I have, and that I need to maybe learn how to make asks from friendships. My approach, and you're probably just like me, is I have developed genuine, long-term, loving, supportive friendships with my colleagues in my industry. And now I have the pleasure of saying with voice teachers all around the world, they're an amazing group of people, and the performers that I started to become really close with living in New York City, which I did for 15 years until I moved right outside the city where I live now. And my networking I look backwards and I go, oh, I was doing it without realizing it because I developed all these close friendships. And another reason why the fact that my mom's on a flight to New York City right now makes me emotional is the last time she was in town, track with me. This is a story about networking, and I want to show you how full circle it is. The last time she was in town, we went to Lincoln Center to see an opera at the Met, the Metropolitan Opera, and a Broadway show at Lincoln Center Theater. And my mom had never been to the Met and she had never been to Broadway. Let me remind you, I grew up really with nothing. So my parents, until more recently, have not had the understanding or finances to be able to even fly to see me. So I did this by myself without any family coming to visit. That's why I said earlier it was a big sacrifice, because I actually like being close to my family. And so living really far away from them with a family that doesn't understand that it's normal to travel, or that it's not really, can be less expensive, or knows how to save for that, was a huge sacrifice. But mom was in town, and this is, again, I moved to New York 20 years ago. And when I did, I've mentioned this in other editions of The Aligned Singer, I went to the Metropolitan Opera all the time. All the time. I was there constantly. Opera, now I do chamber music and early music mostly, and concertizing, meaning I'm a soloist at concerts. But at the time, I thought I wanted to do opera with my career, so I wanted to soak it all in. And I'm still, don't get me wrong, extremely passionate about opera and the technique around it. I love it. But I'm also, I'm also really passionate about Broadway. I love Broadway. I did when I was a tween, and it's never left me. Super amazing. It's just that my instrument is not built for that kind of singing. It's built for classical singing. So when I moved here in 2006, 20 years ago, at the time of this recording, I would go to shows all the time. But when my mom was in town the last time, about 2 months ago, she and I got to go to a show at the Met where I had multiple friends on stage. Multiple friends. My friend, one of my closest friends in the show, hooked us up with tickets, which was really, really cool. And that's happened. In fact, that happens at this point every single time I go to the Met. I'm getting comp tickets. Because I have friends in the show. And we also went to go see Ragtime while it was still playing at Lincoln Center Theater, which was a life-changing experience for my mom and I. I feel like I'm going to cry, but I'm going to try to hold it in for you. The reason I say it was life-changing is after you've been a professional for so long, it just becomes normal. And it is normal. But I had forgotten what it was like to go to Lincoln Center when I first moved to New York with nothing, and I knew no one. BT Dubs, by the way, I forgot to tell you, I didn't know anybody when I moved to New York. I forgot to tell you that. Oh, man. But it's important because networking is how I actually had my breakthroughs in my career. So now I went twice last month to Lincoln Center and saw my friends on stage. I also had a friend in the show in Ragtime. And to see my friend, like steps away, we were 4 rows back, steps away from me, performing like incredible. It was incredible what he was doing. And to see multiple friends on stage in costume at the beautiful production at the Met, I go, wow, Sarah, you forgot that you moved here and didn't know anyone. So networking is the name of the game. And the reason I wanted to illustrate that for you is because networking can happen on purpose, like a lot of people are good at, especially in the business world, or it can happen my Midwestern way by forming genuine friendships with people that you love and support and who love and support you. In my experience, the industry of the performing arts is an incredibly supportive industry, and you may feel a little flustered hearing me say that. You may have had experiences in your hometown or in conservatory or in grad school where it was kind of people against each other and a lot of competition. But I want to zoom you into the future, and in a successful professional career, it never feels like that. So if a role or a project that I want to be cast in or hired for goes to somebody else, I feel happy. I actually don't feel upset or jealous, and they don't feel that way either. So nurturing your friendships with people who want to do what you do, and with mentors like me who've gone before you, is your second step. We can say it's networking, but you can think of it, if that word bothers you, you can think of it as friendship, community, and collaboration. So if you don't live in the place that you want to live yet, and you're still in that step one of saving for it, this might look like starting to meet people in community where you live now who aspire to do the same thing. Like, for example, if you're in grad school right now and you're aspiring, let's say, to move to New York or LA, and you have other people in your program who are doing that too, start to come together and have coffee dates or hang out and talk and scheme together. Those are going to be your people when you move. I didn't actually have that. No one from Missouri from my program moved to New York. One person moved later in her journey, but she didn't move right away. So I was moving alone. And I'm encouraging you, even at a younger age, to start to cultivate those relationships, because if you want to relocate for your career, this could actually be a way to already have connections with people who have homes or rental or bought homes in the area that you want to live in, which is really important if you need to find a place. For example, when I moved to New York, I subletted a place from a med student at Columbia, and I had a month to find an apartment, and I had no idea what I was doing. And if you didn't know this, in New York City, it's really hard to find housing. So I met a gal, and she was my age. We found each other online, and we were roommates together, and we shared a 1-bedroom apartment together because that's all the both of us could afford. And that's how I started out. But if you start to plant the seeds now for the future, the whole episode could be this topic. There is a little bit more to cover, but this is the most important part of the process. You've got to start to plant those seeds and cultivate those relationships now, because when you want to start out professionally, those are the relationships that you can lean into to have community. And having community means that they can support you, help you with the practical stuff, finding jobs, getting gigs, finding places to live, getting work, etc., hanging out, finding a great acting teacher. Everything that came to me in New York City came because of my relationships that I started to form my first few years into living there, including my first professional engagement. And if you want to go back to that episode, I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called. I think it's Follow the Yes. It's the one that has in the title the one audition that broke my career open, that skyrocketed my career. And that relationship that I talk about in that episode, you can cue it up next, is the relationship. And I got really emotional. I was talking about it because that particular person opened up my entire career. It is Follow the Yes. That's what it's called. Now I'm sure. So if you search up Follow the Yes, the Aligned Singer, you can cue it up next, because that might be the next thing that you need to hear if you're really interested in what we're talking about today. So the other thing I wanted to say on my cute little list over here: intern, network, friendships. These are the things that we already talked about networking. We already talked about friendships. I gave you the gold nugget of Follow the Yes. I want to talk about interning. So if you are younger, or like the age I'm thinking people are that are going to be interested in this, 20 years old to 35 years old or so, you can be older than that too. Trust me. Interning is very important. So I want to actually break this down, because a couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with one of my students who his goal is to move to LA. He wants to do his own music and be a professional producer. That's what he wants to do. And he's really talented. And until that time, until it came up, he didn't. This is why I'm saying you might not even know what you don't know. You do not know the questions that you should be asking, most likely. I probably don't either for these next chapters of my professional career, even though I'm a pro. But this particular student didn't know that he should be asking me, whether it's in between our lessons in something we call spotlight sessions, where you can send me a voice memo or a recording and go back and forth. He didn't realize that he should be asking me for mentorship with that process in his career, because we work so much on technique. He probably just didn't occur to him. But thankfully it came up in a lesson, and I was able to really pour into him and really start to truly mentor him in all ways. And you better believe he's going to get this episode of The Aligned Singer, because that's one of the conversations that sparked this entire episode. So he was talking about what to do in the summers. I suggested internships. Here's what I want to say that I said to him that's very important if you're considering this and this little aspect of this episode. It's really important if you are doing something like interning or volunteering or whatever, to do it in the places and spaces and arenas that you eventually want to be working in professionally. That means the location, that means the people. So if you're trapped in this really youthful mindset of like, I just need to get an internship on my schedule, that's what I would have thought at 20 and 19 years old. Even 22 when I moved to New York. But that's not it, my friend. I want to steer you away from doing internships in your local area, in your hometown. If you have your sights set, like my student does, on moving to, let's say, LA in his case, go and figure out how to intern where you want to be, because the relationships that you have are going to then exist in the places and the spaces and the professional environments that you want to be in. So if you're hanging around with, this brings me, I did not have this on my sticky note, but this reminds me that we rise to the level of success of the 5 to 8 people that we spend the most time with. So you need to find the 5 to 8 people who are doing more and more of what you want to do and surround yourself with them. If you're hanging around, if you want to be a successful actor in New York City, let's say, and you're hanging around with a bunch of broke, unsuccessful, struggling actors that are not making it in the industry, you need to take a look at that, my friend, because their energy is becoming your energy and you're all staying at that same, what I call like vibrational level. Think of it as a note on a piano. You're staying at like kind of this low note. Not that low notes are bad. I love low notes. I'm crazy about low notes. But you're staying at this lower tone. And let's say you want to be at a higher tone. You want to be around people. Another way to say that, I'm speaking in metaphor, but is to be around a bunch of people that are successful. Like how I was describing my friends on stage at the Met, my friend on stage at Lincoln Center Theater in Ragtime. I mean, then that weekend they went on to win the Tony. And I was like, this is so cool that I am watching him on the TV. And like, we saw each other this week. That's the kind of friendships that you want to cultivate. And how do you do it? You do it through meeting people. You do it through the interning, etc. Take yourself seriously enough that you start to hang out with people who are already at that high note level that you want to be. And that's going to start to rub off on you. You're going to start to rise to the level of their success. That was a surprise. I didn't realize I was going to tell you that little secret. We could do a whole deep dive on that in The Lion Singer, but I'm just giving you a little tidbit. So there are 2 more things that I want to say in this episode. Who knows? This might become a series, because in your training, what I do as a voice teacher, that's also a whole nother conversation. But like I said, my mom's on an airplane. I need to head to New York City right now to go get her. So we're going to cover 2 more things. These are 2 things that I wish, for heaven's sake, somebody would have told me when I was getting ready to move from Missouri, getting on an airplane, landing at the same airport that my mom is landing at today, and had no idea what I was doing. And that is this. Number 1, it's okay to be a freelancer. Number 2, skip low-paying jobs. I was moving from Missouri. So I was moving as a college student, a broke college student in Missouri. And since, as I've now outed myself to you, been completely honest with you, there was no money coming in from anywhere else. So if I needed gas money, my grandparents did loan me a car, which was extremely generous and not one of the things that I thought of when I thought of my own personal privilege. But grandma and grandpa lent me a car and didn't charge me anything. But you better believe they weren't giving me gas money. I had to pay for that myself. And so I reached this point in college where I had had one job and ended up becoming boyfriend and girlfriend in a relationship with the son of the owner at this little coffee shop that I worked at. And I made about $7 an hour. Yes, I'm not stuttering. I said, let me lean closer into the microphone. I made about $7 an hour. Nobody told me I could make more than that. Just teaching music to kids, for heaven's sake. And we're going to park here for a second because you need to hear this no matter what age you are at. I am literally thinking of close, personal, adult friends right now who need to hear this. So if you feel like, oh, wow, ding, 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 I'm so glad Sarah mentioned that today, then this is for you. Actually, plenty of actor, singer, musician, blah, blah, friends that need to hear this about your side hustle. So let's say you move to this big city, LA, New York, etc., and you're still surrounded by people who kind of don't know what they're doing. I'm not saying don't be friends with those people. I don't want you to get me wrong. Do be friends with them, but make sure the 5 to 8 people that you're hanging out with, as well as your college friends or peers at work, whatever, are doing the things that you want to do. You have to be able to elevate by seeing other people that are doing what you want to do as fast as possible. But here's the thing. Let me make sure I make myself super duper clear. In college, I made about $7 and change an hour. So when I moved to New York, first I had a salaried position, which I thought was tons of money. I was making 40 grand as a special education teacher in New York City. I got in with a special program that let me go in a master's degree program for education. Hello, that's why I'm such a great teacher. I have an entire master's degree in education. Yes, I do, and many years of experience teaching full time while I built my career on the side. But I actually, like I steered you away from taking out that extra student loan and living on credit cards like I did, I also want to steer you away from taking a job. Unless you're the type of person that thrives in that environment, I look back now and go, dang it, I wish somebody in Conservatory or somebody back in my hometown would have said, you know, Sarah, you can probably teach voice and music lessons. I play violin quite well. I can do anything for kids. Like, I could do anything. I was great with kids. I worked at a preschool in college. That was my second job after that boyfriend and I split up. I was like, I'm not working for your parents anymore. And then I made, $7.24 or whatever an hour working at the preschool on campus. I always worked. But the thing that I want to highlight for you is not how sad it is that it was $7 and change an hour, but that you have skills, and so did I, based on your training right now. Right now. Listen to me carefully. The deeper you are into your training as an artist, the more skills you have. But right now, I literally have younger voice students in my studio who are in college and graduate school or just graduating and ready to pursue their career a few years after graduating, who have the skills to make really good money with your skill set. You can teach, you can do whatever creative ideas you come up with. We should start an Instagram thread on this and TikTok thread. I'm sure you have tons of ideas, but your skill set is highly valuable. And if you went to college for what you do, or even if you didn't and you're paying somebody like me to train, it's expensive. You invested into your skill set. I beg of you, please do not go get some other kind of job that's low paying, like, for example, restaurant jobs. Let's just say restaurant jobs are dead. Please do not go get a restaurant job and work for tips. Please go into whatever you do in your actual skill set and work in alignment with that skill set. Hello, we're on the Aligned Singer. That's what the song sounds like, the jingle in my head, usually. So I want to redirect you from taking low-paying jobs at a restaurant or a fast food chain or who knows, I don't know, retail, and instead work within the arts, because that is the skill set, my friend, that you have invested in. Please hear me on this. Nobody ever told me. And what's so weird is that apartment I told you about, that I shared a 1-bedroom apartment with a gal who I had just met online who wanted to do Broadway, and we lived together, a stranger, to be honest. I just wish somebody would have said this to me, because later when I started teaching voice, I was teaching voice on the same block that I lived on when I shared that apartment with her. And I was like, wow, I, at the time, really, when I was really young and just started doing this as a side hustle to pay off all that debt that I just told you about, I racked up when I first moved to New York. I was teaching in an apartment in the Upper East Side before I had my studio and everything that I have now. That's so made. I love having this now. But I remember thinking to myself, I wish I could have done this straight out of undergrad. And nobody said that I could charge this, that, and the other thing. If you want to know what you can charge, please just reach out to me. I would be happy to help you for absolutely for free. I will help you figure this out. I do not want you struggling like I did when I first moved to New York. Are you kidding me? So that's my biggest point on skip low paying jobs. Just skip it. Skip it, for heaven's sakes. I don't know how many times I can say it, but for heaven's sakes, please skip your low paying jobs. And I wrote it on 2 lines right here on the sticky note, but that was it. We can just throw that sticky note away. Those are the absolute basics. So let's review before we finish up and I head to New York City to pick up my mom. First of all, make sure you're saving right now for your dream. It needs that from you. And if you don't know how to do that, let me know and maybe I'll make a line singer on it. Who knows? We'll see. Or I could at least tell you the books that I've read that I find the most helpful. That would be really easy to follow, even if you're younger and you don't know what you're doing. Number 2, your networking, your community, your friendships are gold. They're gold. Number 3, our surprise one that I didn't even realize I was going to teach you today is you rise to the level of success for the people that you hang out with the most. So start to get in the circles and rooms and DMs and online relationships, social media relationships with people who are doing what you want to do. And if you can pay to work with them. Literally right now, there is a voice teacher who's an influencer and she's very, very, very successful. We've worked with the same business coach for voice teachers and I'm seriously considering she offered to work with me one-on-one as basically in her voice lessons program, but we just wouldn't work on voice. We would work on being a voice teacher and doing exactly what she does because I see her and I'm like, I need to spend more time with people like that. Most of my voice teacher friends are teaching at Juilliard, all the major universities in New York City. So my friends teach at Juilliard. I have several friends on faculty at NYU, at Manhattan School of Music, at Manus, at all these places in New York City. But that's not what I want to do. Maybe it is what I want to do, but I like to do my own thing like I'm doing here on the Aligned Singer. So I need to find friends to hang out with and be in that circle. So I'm literally still doing it now. And you heard on a recent episode of The Aligned Singer, the one where we were talking about going pro, it's probably the previous one to this, honestly, in order of the way I recorded them. The Going Pro episode, I fessed up to you that I'm nervous about making my first album, but I have friends who've gone before me and done it, and I'm spending more and more and more time hanging out with them, whether it's just socially or hopping on Zoom or hopping on FaceTime and asking them questions about their album. Because the more time I spend in contact with my friends who've been nominated for Grammys or who have won Grammy Awards with their albums, the quicker I'm going to rise to that level and feel more confident in this thing that I have no idea what I'm doing. Even though I'm not starting my career from scratch now, and I forgot to tell you this, but on the first take of this episode, I bought this house, I did buy this house from my singing. And I told you, I make a very modest income from singing and certainly did when I lived in New York City. But I still was able to save up and buy this home with my voice. So if you are, we'll finish with this today. If you are the person like me who has been surrounded by a community, family, or people in your life that don't really know how seriously you take this, that you actually want to be professional, it's not their fault. They just don't have the context for this. If you don't have a family of performers, if you don't live in a community like growing up in LA where tons of people are in the industry, They just don't know what they don't know, and it's not their fault. But now that you have this resource in your back pocket and me cheering you on, and my colleagues cheer you on too, we talk about these conversations. We talk about what I'm teaching you on the Aligned Singer. I talk with my colleagues who are very successful about what my students are sharing with me in lessons. This is just, we like to talk about our students, especially people who also teach voice and perform, just like me. You have people that are cheering you on. We see you and we want you to succeed. So I digress. Even if you're in these scenarios and you're in a community, in a circle of people, and your family just doesn't get it, that is not a prescription for you not being able to do it. You can take me as an example. You can take colleagues of mine who've grown up like I did as an example. It's more common than you think. And I know it doesn't feel great if you're in the scenario where you feel like a polka dotted unicorn for being a performer. But if that is you, I need to remind you that that is not a prescription for your future. Just because they can't see it yet, you have other people like mentors like me and my friends who can see it. We know that it's possible, and I wanted to, I've said this on other episodes of The Aligned Singer, but it does kind of wow me that this home office that I film and audio record this in came because of my singing. Nobody gave this to me. Nope. I mean, there were a lot of amazing kismet things that helped me to get this, but guess what? They were my relationships. Let me say that a little closer to the microphone. If you were distracted, come back to me. Even the thing that got me my house was my relationships. Go ahead and cue up that Follow the Yes episode. It's literally my favorite episode that I've ever done. I felt like I could write a whole book called Follow the Yes. But since there isn't a book called Follow the Yes, you can go to that episode. Your relationships are everything. And I just want to remind you before we finish out today and I head to the city that your relationship, even if it's with me, even if we don't know each other or we've just DM'd a little bit here and there, I'm cheering you on. I think about your success all the time. I think about what can I do to support their success. I want to support their success. That's what I think about a lot. While I'm out in the garden that's about to get tilled right now, that's what I'm thinking about. And even if I am the first person, I didn't say only, I said first person that is that person that helps you to rise to the level of success that me and my friends on the Met stage, on Broadway stages have, then you got it. You've got your first opening. That's your door to open. And we talk about doors opening in the Follow the Yes episode. Again, it's my very favorite. So if you want to connect with me and reach out to me, don't be shy. People are like, I didn't know if you'd see this. If I miss it, I'm looking for it. So DM me again because I missed it on accident. Go ahead and DM me on Instagram or TikTok. I'm at Voice Teacher Sarah, and you can find me at Voice Teacher Sarah on all the social media platforms. Right now, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And I just want to tell you that I believe in you. And I'm not the only person in your corner. Maybe I'm just the first person in your corner, if that's the case. And if not, and you already have a circle of people that's supporting you, that's amazing. So I hope you found this episode of The Aligned Singer really, really helpful. This one was frankly a very vulnerable episode to share. And I'm going to leave it there. Bye for now.